Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Joseph, an a top-rated developer freelancer on Upwork. In this video, we're going to be building a recipe food mobile app, and it's going to have a beautiful user interface with some really cool functionalities. Throughout the video, we'll be using libraries like React Native Navigation, Expo Go, Tailwind CSS, Lottie, Responsive Screen, React Native Reanimated, and also Axios for fetching our data from an API source, while also catching that specific data and so much more. If this sounds interesting, like this video, hit that subscribe button and let's create some magic together. Without further delay, let's jump right into this build. Okay guys, the first thing we have to do is set up a folder in our desktop directory, and we're going to call that Expo app. We're going to drag that in our Visual Studio Code editor. And by the way, you need a virtual device setup, and you can get this from Android Studio. And also you can set up your Visual Studio Code editor here. Moving on, we're going to install some basic packages to be able to kickstart and set up our React Native app. Okay, to get started, we're going to head over to our browser, and we're going to set up our development environment. We're going to be setting up React Native using Expo Go Quick Start. That is faster to set up. We're going to copy this code. We're going to head back to our terminal. We're going to select this terminal, new terminal. And inside of this, we're going to paste the code here. And we're not going to call this awesome project, but food cave. And we're going to let that install. This might take a minute or two, and it will depend on your internet connection and how fast it is. Okay, this is ready, and it says here our project is ready. The next thing we have to do is head over to our food cave folder by typing cd food cave. Click on enter. Next thing we have to do is make sure that we install all other package managers. So we're going to head back to our browser, head over to get started and reactnavigation.org. We're going to copy this code snippet. We're going to install React Navigation Native. Head back, paste this code, install it. When this is ready, we're going to head back to our browser again. We're going to head over to this, and you can find that in Hello React Navigation. We're going to install the React Navigation Native stack. And what these two libraries does is they help us navigate between screens and make our work easier when we're navigating from the welcome screen to the home screen to the other screens that we have in our mobile app. So that is installed as well. So the next thing we have to do is obviously power on our app and start working. So we're going to type npx expo start, click on enter, and it will run our React Native mobile app on this virtual device. That is ready, and if you're using an iPhone and you don't want to use a virtual device, you can go ahead and just take your camera of your iPhone and scan this QR code, and make sure that you install the Expo Go app to be able to open this on your iPhone. And if not, you want to use a virtual device, all you have to do is just open on Android, and that is typing A. Once you type A, it is going to start the process of opening your app on Android. And let's just take a quick look at all the files that was installed. So currently it is bundling our app on Android. So while that is going on, we're just going to check our package.json real quick. And we're going to see everything that has been installed so far. So we've installed Expo status bar, React Native, also React Navigation Native and Native Stack. When that is ready, you're going to see your app here 20 seconds from now. Good. So we have this on the screen. We're just going to minimize this a little bit, maybe entirely. We're going to head into app.js, and real quick, we're going to change this to hello world and see the magic happen. So to set up our app and design the first screen we are going to be working with, we're going to be creating this, and this is a welcome screen that has an animation from Lottie. You have the text, you have the button, you have a subtext, and you also have this nice background, which is like a fold outline, and it is going to give our welcome screen a nice user interface. So to start with that, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you set up your folder properly. And in this, you're going to create a folder called src. This is the source folder, by the way. And inside this src, you're going to create 3 additional folders. And the first one is screens. So this is where you're going to put your welcome screen, your home screen, and other screens that you have. Inside this again, you're going to create a folder called components. And inside of this component is where you're going to have your little reusable codes like the button, like the card, and so on. And also inside the source folder, you're going to have something called constant. Inside of this constant is where you're going to have some dummy datas like the categories and this other dummy datas that we want to show in our app before we pull the data from an external source. And also finally, you're going to create a navigation folder. And inside of this navigation folder, you're going to have your navigation, which handles all the navigating from your welcome screen, from your recipe detail screen, and so on. So the first thing you have to do here is create an index.js file. And inside of this, as you can guess, you're going to create a boilerplate code for React Native. And the best way to do that is type React Native functional. And you can see a React Native functional component. Select this, and you're going to edit this to be called app navigation. Once you save that, you need to bring it inside the main app here. By the way, we're not going to be using this default styling in React Native. We'll be using Native Reanimated and Tailwind CSS. So to get started, we're going to remove this piece of code, and also we're going to remove this piece of code. So we're going to bring in our app navigation. When I'm coding along, you're going to see me just autocomplete a line of code, and that is done by GitHub Copilot. It will help you write code faster without needing to write all the entire code. So if you need that, just head over to GitHub Copilot and download that. So the next thing you have to do is head back into your app navigation inside of the navigation index.js, and you need to set up the screen properly. So the first thing you have to do is make sure that you set up or bring in your native navigation, and you're going to say import navigation container from React Native navigation. And after that, you're going to bring in import create native stack navigator from React navigation / native stack. And also to use this in particular, you're just going to say create a variable called stack, and this stack is assigned to this method we are getting from native stack. Also, we're going to make sure that we wrap our entire app in navigation container. To do that, we're going to come here, we're going to say navigation container, and we're going to bring all this inside of this. Save that, and that's the first step. The next step is to also add another thing here called stack.navigator, and this also, you're going to wrap your entire app inside of this. At the end of the day, we will not need this at all. So the next thing we have to define here is a stack.screen. Stack.screen, name is home, component of home screen. What is it saying? That this screen is named home and the component is home screen. Currently now it says home screen doesn't exist. We have to create this and import it. We head back to our source folder. Inside of our screen, we are going to create a file rather called home screen.js. Once you create this, the error will disappear, and you create a boiler code with React Native functional component. Save that, and you will see that in a minute. So if you don't see that, that means you've not imported it. You head back to your index.js, and here at the last line, you're going to hold down Ctrl and space. Once you hit that, it is going to show this. Select it, save this, and you have it there. And the next thing we have to do is also create another file here. We're going to call that welcome screen.js. And the next thing we have to do is create a boiler code for this. Save that, and you head back to your app navigation. Copy this, paste that back, and you're going to call this welcome screen, and also you're going to say welcome, and this you're going to import it right here. Once you import that, you're going to continue with your code. Now this header, we don't want it in our code at all, and the best way to do that is to hide it. So we're going to head to stack.navigator right here, and it takes in some parameters or properties to be able to hide that. And the first thing you have to do is say initial route name is welcome. So whenever the app is creating, we want them to be taken to the welcome screen. And after that, we are going to say screen options is going to be header shown is false. So our header is off and it has been disabled. So the next thing we have to do is make sure that we style our home screen. And to do that, we're going to close this work home screen to make everything clean. Okay. So to start, you're going to say, go to your welcome screen. And initially, this is supposed to be the welcome screen. If there's an error with that, you have to check your code again and see what the error is. So if you go to this welcome, we have the welcome screen. Okay. We've imported it, and we also bring it here. Why is it not showing? Maybe we need a reload. So we're going to head back to our terminal. We're going to reload our app by just typing letter R on your keyboard, and it's going to reload our app. So we should have our welcome screen here. If you don't see it properly, you just have to look closer and you see it. Now, the next thing we have to do is head back to our welcome screen and begin our styling. So to begin styling this, we're going to need some library first. And one of the most important library that we're going to use is this Native Wind. So to install this, all you have to do is just copy this, head back to our code editor, open the terminal, create a new terminal by selecting this. Then we're going to cd into our folder, which is called food cave. Make sure you cd into this unless it is going to install the libraries outside of this folder, which is not what we want. So we're going to paste that code here, go to the front and type npm I native wind. After that, click on enter and it is going to install Native Wind for us. The next thing we have to do is install Tailwind CSS. In this step, you have to be extra careful because the latest Tailwind CSS doesn't work as at when we're writing this code. So we're just going to install a different version, which is like a step to the latest version. Once this is done, we're going to say, give it a second. Okay, this is ready. And next thing we're going to do is npm I, paste this. Don't click enter yet. You have to install a specific version. So we're going to say at version 3.3.2. So click on that and it's going to install Tailwind CSS for us. Head back to our browser, scroll up, and the next thing we have to do is set up Tailwind CSS. To do that, you're going to copy this code, copy it, go back to our terminal, and this is installed already. So we want to set up the code, paste the code you just copy, click on enter. It doesn't matter if you are installing just Tailwind CSS, it doesn't need a version number here. Great, you can see our tailwind.config.js here. So to set up our Tailwind CSS, we're going to head back to the documentation. We're going to copy this code, copy it. As you can see here, it says to remove this and replace it with this. Head back here, paste this code, and here we're going to say instead of this custom folder, we're going to say we want to use src, which is this src folder here. So the next thing we have to do is scroll up and add this code to your babel.config.js. To do that, we're going to head to babel.config.js. We're going to come under this, paste this, we're going to save it. Now, when you save this, when you put this here, you need to restart your mobile app. So after that, we're going to head back to our browser again. And before we reload our app, we're going to install something again, which is called Lottie. And Lottie is just for animation and more. So we're going to copy this piece of code here, copy this, head back here. We're going to paste the code, click on enter. Once that has been installed, that is for animation, and the animation is right here. Now, to make sure that everything here is responsive on all devices and screens that we want to use this app, we're going to install another package called React Native Responsive Screen. And we're going to copy this. We're going to bring this down, paste this code, click on enter. When this is ready, head back once again to React Native Reanimated, and this is going to give your code some kind of animation, or your libraries or any elements that we use in our app some animation like this. This text, you can make it fading up whenever the app opens. This button, you can make it do anything. So the library that handles that is this one. Copy this code as well, but we're not going to install the latest one. The latest one has issue with the latest Expo. So we're going to head back to our code. We're going to say paste this, but install a specific version. And the version we're going to install is 3.3.0. Click on enter. So when this is ready and installed, you're going to make sure to add one other plugin here called React Native Reanimated plugin. This will make sure that the animation works in our app. And yes, that's the final thing we have to do regarding libraries for now. So we're going to head back to our first terminal that we opened here. and we're going to restart our app. And to do that, all you have to do is press Ctrl C. It will stop your server, and you can start your server again by typing npx expo start. It is important to restart your server. Very important. When you change any file or data here in the babel.config.js, so we're just going to close that for a minute. We're going to close this as well. And it is starting our Metro bundler. This is ready. Like I said again, you can just use your iPhone to scan this code and make sure you download the Expo Go app to be able to see the app on your iPhone. If you're using an Android, you can just press A, connect your Android code to your system, and it will work. So in my case, I have a virtual device here. I'm just going to type A. It is going to prepare our app, and in a minute or two, a couple of seconds, it is going to reload this, and it is going to show. If it says cannot connect to Metro, then it means you have to reload the app, reload it, and it is going to bundle the app once again. When it comes to mobile development, you need to relax and let it do its thing. And yes, so when that is ready, we're just going to bring this down a little bit, and you see our app in a minute, as you can see it here. So all the libraries that we need is ready. Let's jump into coding. So we're going to head back to our screen, welcome screen, and the first thing we have to bring here is a status bar. We're going to say import status bar from Expo status bar. Also, we want to bring in our responsive library. We're going to say width percentage as WP and height percentage to DP as HP. After this, we're also going to say import navigation container from this. As well, you're going to bring in Lottie view, and that is spelled Lottie view from Lottie React Native. And also the final thing for now is bring in animated from React Native animated, and you shouldn't have any error regarding this. If you save, no error. So let's jump into installing this. The first thing we have to do is create a variable here, and we're going to call this constant of animation, which is a variable. We're going to assign it to use ref, and also say it is null for now. We're going to import this by clicking here and say, okay, it is already imported right here. Sometimes it imports this thing automatically. So next thing we have to do is say const navigation is equal to use navigation. And after that, we're going to jump into our code and begin styling it. If it says you can't see use navigation, that's because we have to replace this with use navigation, and everything will be set properly. So inside of this view, we're going to say the class name that we're going to have right here is BG, and the custom styling is F6 4E 32. And as you can see, it is already working. That shows that our Tailwind CSS is working perfectly. We're going to see this one is flex of 1. Also, justify center items center, and also space y of 10. Also call this relative. Why are we saying it is relative? Because we want some other items that are going to display on top to be absolute of it. So you can see it is working now, and we are close to already having our home screen. So the next thing we are going to do is bring in this Lottie view. And to do that, we're going to remove this code for a minute. We're going to say image. And in this image, we're going to say the source is going to be require this so asset. By the way, you're going to change this asset URL to something like this. Inside our assets, our image, then inside our image, you have background.png. This folder is not created yet. Let's go into our asset and create it. We're going to create a new folder called images. And inside of these images, we're going to say we have a background.png. Currently, it is not there. We have to bring it in. And inside of these images, you can see the background. It is just this cool food background. And yes, so you're going to close this. We're going to create some style in here. And the first style is, say, style is going to be, in this style, you're going to say position. is absolute. Also width is WP of 100. We're going to do this way, which is 100% of the entire screen. Image doesn't exist. We're going to bring it in from React Native. And as you can see, this is shaping up already. The next thing we have to do is bring in an height of HP 100. And you can see the background here. So we are going to say the next thing is to bring in our Lottie view. And in our Lottie view, after this, we're going to say Lottie view. And inside the Lottie view, you're going to have an autoplay. After the autoplay, you're going to have our ref to be of animation that we created here earlier. And after that, you're going to have a style. And the style is going to be width of not WP of 100, but 200. And also height, and set our height to also not be 200, but 300. And after that, the last thing we have to do is bring in the source of our animation to be assets, not animation, but Lottie, and also food logo.json. You see it displayed right here. Look at this animation, guys. By the way, this animation is gotten from Lottie, and I'm going to attach the link to download it in the description below. All you have to do is just download as Lottie JSON and put that inside of your file folder here under Lottie, as you can see it. So we're going to minimize this a little bit. Next thing we have to do is create some text under this, and the best way to do that is have another view here. And inside of this view, we like to make sure our code is neat. So we are going to have a comment here saying title and subtitle. Save that. And inside of this view, we're going to have some styling first. We're going to say class name, and the class name have flex, items, center, and space y of 2. Save that and move on to adding the text. So we're going to say text, and inside of this text, we're going to say food cave, and we're going to start this saying this as a text of white, which is the most important thing. We're going to make the font extra bold, and thereafter we're going to make sure that the letter spacing is wide enough. So the property for that is tracking widest, this. And after that, we're going to make sure that we style the font size and the width and all. So we're going to say this. We're going to say the font size is going to be not 40 directly because we want to make it responsive for all devices. So we're going to say HP of 5. So irrespective of the device, it is going to remain the same. And the next thing we're going to add is a subtext under here. So we're going to jump after this text here. We're going to say text, and this text is going to say explore some delicious food. Save that and see it up right here. So to begin styling this, you're going to say it has a class name of text white, tracking to be widest, and also a font of medium. Save that, and also add style font size to be HP of 2.5, and this looks good already. After that, we're going to add a button right here, which takes us to the next screen, which is the home screen. So under this view, we're going to have another view, and inside of this view, we're going to have a touchable opacity, and this touchable opacity we also have a text, and this text we say get started. Save that, and you can see it right here. So to begin styling that, this touchable opacity we have some now style. We're going to say the fourth style, it is going to be background color of this, padding vertical of HP of 1.5, and also padding horizontal of WP of 5. Nope, we want HP of 2.5. As you can see, I mean, why not use 5? Let's see how that works. After that, we're going to say the border radius is going to be not 10 fixed, but we're going to make it responsive for all devices. Save that, and it's looking good already. So whenever we select this, we want it to take us to the next screen. And the props for that is the event listener called onPress. And inside of this, we're going to create an asynchronous function. And also, we're going to say navigation does navigate to home. Remember that we set this to home in our app navigation. As you can see, home, the home screen. If you're going to navigate to another directory or another screen, you make sure that you have this name properly set to what you have here. So we're going to continue styling the text, and we're going to say this as a style, and the style is the font size. First, let's set the color to be that, and also the font size to be HP of 2 point, let's just say 2. Also, let's add a font weight of not bold but medium. Excellent. We have everything set properly, and it looks like our home screen is similar to what we have saved here. So maybe you should increase the button a little bit. Yeah, we need that. So we're going to head back into our get started and say this is 2.2. Okay, so our welcome screen is ready, and you can see this looks really nice already. We have this background, we have this Lottie animation, which autoplays by the way, and we have this food cave, we have this subtext, and this button. Simple as it can be. And on the count of 3, we're going to make sure that we select this and takes us to the home screen. So in 3, 2, 1, go. It takes us to the home screen. And to begin styling our home screen, we're going to go inside our screen. I like to make sure that our folders are closed properly. So inside our source, in our screen, we have the home screen. And let's begin working on our home screen. So to begin styling the home screen, we're going to make sure that we install some libraries. We're going to head to our browser. We're going to install React Native Hero icons. So we're going to copy this code, bring this down, open our terminal, open up another terminal right here. We're going to install that right away. After that is installed, we're just going to bring this down and paste this code right here. It's just 2 set of icons from React Native icons / outline. Save that, and if it throws an error, all you have to do is just reload your app, go back to your terminal, go back to your main terminal, and press R, reload your app, and you should bundle your app right away. If it says it doesn't seize it, well, you just have to stop your server and start it again. Yes. So when you do that, it should and it must see this package, because currently now it's saying the React Native hero icons, it can be found in your app. So all you have to do is just restart your server and to work right away. So give it a minute to restart our server, and to do that in a minute. So you're going to say, open this on this Android right here. Okay. So this is ready and our app is displayed right here. Good. So when we click get started, you should not see the error of hero icons again. So we're going to just jump right into our code and begin styling this. So why did I show you that is because sometimes you might get error that you don't even know where it is coming from. All you have to do is stop your server, start it again, reload your app, and it will work. And that's because when it comes to building with React Native, you have to have some patience with the virtual device and all. Okay, so let's get started on that. And let's see what we're going to be building first. So this is the amazing UI that we're going to be building for our home screen. It has these little things going on there that when combined together makes our welcome screen, or sorry, home screen look really beautiful. So without further ado, let's create this up here. And the first thing we're going to say is it has a class name. And the class name is set to be flex of 1 and also background of white. That looks good already, even though it doesn't show any much difference, but yes, the background is now white. And inside of this, we're going to make sure that our status bar, which is from Expo by the way, has a style of dark. We want to see what's going on here. It is currently on dark, okay? So after that, we're going to have a scroll view. If you don't know what a scroll view is just a view that makes sure all the items that you have here is scrollable. So we're going to say, let's put in our text so that we know we're working on something. Home screen. Save that and you can see it here. The next thing you're going to do is put this scroll view inside a safe area view. And this will make sure that this doesn't affect all the texts that we have right here. So inside of the scroll view, we're going to add some properties, and the first property we're going to add is that it should not shows vertical scroll indicator. This will make sure that it doesn't show any vertical indicator here. So we're going to make sure this stays inside of this. Good. So if we click on get started again, you're going to see it. So every time we save our code, we don't want to be taken back to the welcome screen, click get started and all that. So for now, we're going to set our initial route name to be of home, which is right here. So whenever we save for now, you're still going to stay in this home screen. And once we're done with all our code, we can set this back to welcome screen. So whenever we open our app, the welcome screen will be the first thing that we see. So head back to our home screen and close this welcome screen. So it has other props, and the next prop we're going to add is container content style. And inside of this, we are going to say the padding bottom is going to be of 50. And also, we're going to add some class name here. The class name, the first one is going to be PT of 14, which is padding top, by the way. So if you ever hover it, you're going to see it right here. And also, you're going to have a space of 6. Save that. Next, we are going to do is add our icon here and our avatar here. So to do that, we're just going to comment our code and say this is avatar and bell icon. Save that. Then we're going to have a view here, and inside of this view is going to have a class name, and the class name is going to be mx of 4 flex of row justify between items of center. Moving on, we're going to have an icon inside of this, but if you put this inside of this view, you're going to see the styling that we applied here is going to show here. We're just going to remove this for minutes, and we're going to see we want an adjustment horizontal icon to be here, and this takes in some props, and the first prop it takes is the size, and the size is HP of 4. HP doesn't exist. All we have to do is import that, and we're going to import as HP. When you save that, it's still saying it doesn't exist. Okay, that's because we didn't use the right word here. So we're going to say instead of all this, just HP. Give us HP. That's what we want. So thereafter, we're going to say it has a color of gray. Excellent. You can see it is looking nice already. Also, we want an image to be here, and inside of this image, we want a source, and the source to require this. This is not the right part. We're just going to change this in a minute. Images avatar.png, and we're going to import our image right here. This looks very big, and we're going to start that in a minute. We're going to say the style is going to be width of 5 rather, and height of 5, and it's sitting pretty there already. And the next thing we're going to do is add a class name, and the class name is going to be rounded full. This is not supposed to be sitting inside of this. This is supposed to be sitting outside of the style, and you can see it right here. We can also add another prop called resize mode, and if you add contain, you can see the image looking cool. We can also add cover to it so that it brings it to the front a little bit. So the next thing we are going to create is this text right here, and to do that, we are going to add a comment here that says headlines, and inside of this headline you're going to have a view, and inside of this view you're going to also have another view, and the first view is going to have a class name, and the class name is going to be mx of 4 space y of 1 margin bottom of 2. Let's add our text first to see what we're working with. So we're going to have a text here, and this text is going to say fast and delicious, and thereafter we're also going to have another text under this view, and this text is going to say food you love. However, we don't want this to be here directly. We want another text inside of this text, and this text is going to say love, because we want to style this love text differently than what we already have. So to begin styling, we're going to say this view doesn't have any styling, but the text here should have some styling, and we're going to say style is going to be font size of HP of 3.5, so it looks very big. And also we're going to make sure we have a class name of font bold, and also text neutral of 800. Save that, and you see the difference immediately. After that, we want this text to have a style of font size of maybe the same as what we have earlier, 3.5. And after that, we're going to have a class name, and the class name is going to have font of extra broad, and also text neutral of 800. This looks good already. However, I want this love text to have some kind of color, just like this. So to do that, we're going to say this text has a class name, and the class name is going to be text with a custom color style of F6, 4E, and also 32. So you can see the color changing already. So the next thing we have to add is, let's check our design. Okay, this looks really cool. And the next thing we're going to add is this search input here. And to do that, we're going to come under this. We're going to say this is search bar. And under this search bar, we're going to have a view. And in this view, we're going to say it has another view. So I like to structure all these semantics first before we start styling. And also, we're going to make sure we have a text input right here. Excellent. So inside of the first view, we're going to have an icon. But first, let's import this from React Native. And the first thing we're going to have here is an icon called magnifying glass icon from React Hero Icons, React Native Hero Icons. And also, we're going to make sure that we have the size to be HP of 2.5, and also the color, it's going to be gray. Save that. Also, we want to add like a stroke around the icon. We're going to say stroke width, it is going to be of 3. Okay, this looks good already. So next we're going to have is our text input, and in the text input it takes some properties, and the first and most important one is the placeholder. We want to have search your favorite food as the text. Also, we want there to be a placeholder text color to be gray, and after that we want our style to be of font size of not 2.5, that looks too big, of 1.7, and thereafter I want to have a class name, and the class name will be of flex of 1. Text should be of base, which includes margin bottom of 1, padding left of 1, and also tracking of widest. Once this is done, you can see it right here, but this is not close to what we have here at all. So we're going to head back to our first view here. We're going to say the class name is going to be margin x of 4, flex of row, items, center, border, and also rounded of XL. Border is to be black, and also padding is a custom 6 pixel padding. This looks good already, but not close to what we have there. So in this view as well, we're going to say the class name is going to be background of white, and also rounded of full, and as well as p of 2, padding of 2. Well, this looks cool already, and it looks closer to what we have in our design right here. So next thing we're going to add on our screen is this category right here. So to begin with, we're going to come under this. So we're going to see this as a categories text here, and right under this we're going to have a view. That's the most important thing. And we're going to be using some sets of components here, which we've not created here. So the first thing we have to do is say categories components, which we've not created by the way. So it's going to say it doesn't exist. In a minute, we're going to head back to our component. And in this component, we're going to say we need a categories.js component. And we're going to create a boiler code using this code snippet. We save that, head back to our home screen, and bring this in right away. So in a minute, you should see that show here. So to begin working on our category component, we're going to have some nice card here, and it has to be individual. So we just have to loop through them and populate the categories. On the data here and the image that was used, we're going to make sure we have them stored inside of this component. Inside of this component, we're going to create another file called index.js. We're going to paste this data right here. You can find out in the description box below. So all these just represent some set of IDs, category, which is beef, chicken, and also their descriptions and the image and where they can be found. So this is not going to be the dummy data we are going to use entirely for this development. We're going to be pulling data using Axios from an external source into a mobile app. And that will teach you how to work with data in case you have data from a database or from an external API or your own API. So let's get started by going back to our categories. And the first thing we have to do is import the category data from not data.category, but we're going to say it is from constant. And yes, we can also change this to be small letter. Okay, so to begin installing this, inside of this view, we're going to have a scroll view. As you can see here, everything here can be scrolled horizontally. So we're going to add a scroll view here. And inside of this scroll view, we're going to make sure that it has some properties that are essential. And the first thing is horizontal property. And also, we don't want to show any indicator. So we're going to set that to false. Also, we're going to make sure that we have a class name. And the class name is not this exactly, but just space X of 4, so as to give each individual card some spacing in between. Also, we're going to have a container style to be a padding horizontal of not 20 but 15. So inside of this scroll view, we're going to say use category, map through this, and once you map through it, it is a method, and you're going to have a category and also an index. After this, you're going to set an arrow here, and you're going to have some set of curly braces right here. So the first thing we have to do is return something. And the first thing we're going to return is the touchable opacity. And we're going to close this like this. We're going to import this right away. I'm going to say the key is key of index. Also, the class name has to be flex, not flex of 1, but items to be center, and also space y of 1. Save that, and in a minute you're going to see all our categories now. But first, let's set all this properly. Also, let's create a set of variable here to see which item is selected. As you can see here, this is selected and it has a nice background on it, and we have to track that using a state. So whenever we click this also, it is going to change the color, the background color, to deep orange. I remove it here. And the best way to do that is create a variable called is active, and this is active is assigned to category dot string category. Also, it is going to be of active category. Save that, and if it says active category doesn't exist, you head back to your categories and you destructure it right here and say active category. Save that, and that should work right away. Also, we need something else here, which is undo change category. So whenever we click on each of these category, this is the function that makes that work perfectly. So we're going to head back to our code. We're going to create another variable here, and we're going to say the variable is let active button, and also the class to be is active, which we already created here. And also, if this is true, we're going to have a background, and the background right here is going to be F6 4E32. Also, we're going to say if this is true, then set this to be the background. Else, we're just going to use a BG of gray. So let's populate our data and see everything on the screen here. Let's minimize this and continue working on our code. So inside of this touchable opacity, we're going to have an image. We're going to import that like this. Also, the image, we have a source, and the source is going to be URI of category.string category thumb. And also, we're going to have a style of width to be HP of 6, HP of 6. Save that. If that doesn't exist, we're just going to import that right away. But we still don't want this as the case. And we're going to head back to our code and say import this as HP. Go back to your code. And also we want to be an height, and the height also HP of 6. And finally, we want to have a class name of rounded full. This looks good already. And if we scroll, you're going to see all the categories image. However, we still need to have or put a text under each one. And to continue studying our code, we're going to make sure that inside of this image, it is wrapped around a view. And the view is going to be here. Inside of this view, we're going to put that right here. And inside of this view, we're going to say the class name is going to be not of this, but of the curly braces. And we're going to say rounded, it's going to be XL. And also the padding, it's going to be a custom padding of 6 pixel. And also we're going to say add this to active button class. Moving on, we're going to say inside of this view, we want a text. And inside of this text, we want the text to have a category dot string category. Save that, and you're going to see the category names here. We're going to see this text have a class name, and the class name is set to be text of neutral of 800. And also we're going to have a style, and the style is going to be font size of HP of not 1.5 but 1.6. Save that, and you can see that looking good. Now we still need to be able to hide this scroll view. We don't want that there at all. So we're going to head back to our code. We're going to say show horizontal scroll indicator to be false. We don't want to see that scroll view at all. And also check our design to see if this looks like this. Now the only thing we still need to add is this background. So before we leave here, we're going to make sure that we add another prop called categories here. And the categories on the long run, we're going to assign it here instead of category data. We're going to head back to our home screen to set up this undo change category and also the categories. So we head back to our home screen. We're going to create some set of state here to track the active category, to track the categories data if it has been mounted on our component. So to do that, we're going to say constant of active category and also set active category to use state. We're going to say the default value is beef, which is the first one here. After this, we're going to create another state, and this state should be called categories and set categories to this. Also, the last state we're going to use is of meals and set meals to an empty array, and this is just a string. In our categories, this is categories text here. We're just going to remove that in a bit. Save that, and that should be gone. So Whilst in our code, we're going to make use of use effect. Pretty simple, just to pull our data. If you want something complex, or to be able to handle kitchen and all that, you're going to be using React query. So once these states are set up properly, we need to be able to pull the data. And the library for that is called Axios. So we're just going to copy this, head back to our code. We're going to bring up our terminal. And in the PowerShell, we're going to paste our code, install it. And in a minute, we should be able to pull the data from an API source. So once this is installed, we're just going to minimize our terminal. Let's bring it into our code. We're going to say install or bring in Axios. From Axios, save that. And it says unexpected token from, we're just going to save that and continue. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we have a variable set here which handle the category change and all that. So we're going to say get recipes method to be of the category, and also set active category to be of category, and also the last thing, set meals to be of an empty array. Just before this, we're going to use a use effect hook right here, and inside of this, we're going to call the first one, which is get categories, and also we're going to get the recipes, but we're not going to add anything inside of it. Save that, and after this, we're going to create some of this function that we just added here. So we're going to say constant of get categories is going to be an asynchronous function, and inside of this function, we're going to say try, and inside of this try, we're going to pull in our data. We're going to say a variable of response is await axios dot get, and inside of this, we're going to say https, and we're going to pass in this URL. Now this URL is from a website, and this website we can pull in all meals and all that, and you can find that right here in the mealdb.com. And if you click on free JSON API, you can scroll up and you see list all meal categories, and this is the exact link that we are using right here. So all we have to do is just continue with our code and say after the try, we're going to also catch, and in the catch, we're going to catch for errors. So whatever errors we get is displayed in the console. We're going to save that. There's an error here which says property of get category doesn't exist. We're going to fix that in a little bit. So moving on, we can as well minimize this for a while and go back to our code and reload our app so that all the changes that we made is displayed. We're just going to minimize this in a bit. So it says guest recipes doesn't exist. Understood. Let's comment that out first, and also comment this out first. So the next thing we have to do after we're getting our data is to make sure that if response and response dot data is true, we're just going to set the categories to be response.data.categories. So whatever categories you are getting, if the response is true, okay, you get this response and you get the data from the response, just set these categories that we have here to the response.data.categories. We really want the categories there. So moving on, if there's an error, just say console.log error dot message to the screen, and yes. Also, we're going to create this second function that we have here. So we're going to say, let's create a variable of get recipes, and it is an asynchronous function, and it has a category of beef, which is the default one. So we're going to say try. So whenever we have a try, we still need to have a catch to catch the errors displayed on the screen, unless it is going to keep throwing that error that just disappeared now. So inside of this try, we're going to say create a variable called response, and in the response, it is going to be an await an axios dot get, and inside of this, we're going to pass in a backtick, and this is the code for that. So we are pulling this API URL, and also we are passing the category inside of this. So what this code is doing is that it is pulling all the recipes from this URL, but it is only going to pull the specific category that we selected here. So the next thing we have to do is set some other things here. Inside of this catch, we're going to say console.log the errors that we will have, which is error.message. Save that. and that should be done. So we're going to comment this out and also comment this. So it seems our app is ready, and to make sure that we're pulling the right data, we're just going to console.log some things. And the first thing we have to do is say console.log response.data.categories. We're going to check here, and in a minute you're going to see all the categories here. As you can see, it has been console.logged. So we're going to minimize this. So after creating these two functions, we're going to use them in our code. And to do that, we're going to head back to our categories component, and we're going to pass in some of the props that we used earlier. And the most important prop that we use is categories and the categories. So we head back here and say categories is going to be equal to categories. And also we're going to say active category is going to be active category. Also, we're going to say the last one, which is undo change category, is undo change category. Save that. And inside of this category, we're going to use this category that we're mapping through. We're going to say this is not category data anymore, it is categories.map. As you can see here, we have the correct categories here. So if you go back to our home screen, but before we go, we're going to make sure that we set something here first. And here we're going to say if categories dot length is greater than 0, and that is when you should show this. So unless it is greater than 0, which is this category, that is when you're supposed to show this category. So moving on, we're going to make sure that we have a nice background here. The background is not showing yet. So to do that, we're going to head back into our categories code, and we're going to see where the error is. And checking our code, it seems we've set everything up properly, but we still have one or two things to do, and that is this background here. And this undo change category, we've not used it in our components right here. So if we head up under category data.map, inside the touchable opacity, on press, which is an event handler, and this event handler is going to say an asynchronous function of undo change category, and we're going to set the category to string category. So after setting this, if this still doesn't show, all we have to do is check our view where we are setting the background and make sure that, okay, let's add a space here. Let's see, that works. But we don't want the beef to be inside of this, which is the category text. Let's take out our text, and right here we're going to say everything here, copy it or cut it out and bring it outside here. That looks good already. So if you select this, it's going to have a nice background. It's going to have a nice background, and whichever element that we select or whichever category that we select, the background color will change. Okay, moving on, we have to create the next item here, which is the recipes. And if you check this already, it looks almost the same, but it still doesn't have this gray background. And to do that, we're going to say, okay, we're just going to say use a black, and the black as of over 10. Save that, and you can see it looks exactly the same like what we have here. So let's continue styling the recipe component right here. So the next thing to style on our component is this recipe cards, and also make it to have this Mansory kind of list, and also the linear gradients under it, and also the text on top for each meal. And to get started with that, under this in our home screen, we're just going to add a comment which says recipes meal, and we're going to create a view inside of this. And inside of this view, we're going to say we have a recipes component, and this recipe doesn't exist yet, but anyway, we're going to create it in a minute. And we're going to say it has a props of meals, and the meals also is assigned to the meals in our component right here. Also, we're going to say the categories is equal to the categories that we have in our component here. So the first thing we have to do is create this recipe component. We're going to enter our component. We're going to create a new file called recipes.js. Save that and create a boilerplate code using this. So if you head back to our home screen, you just have to import this, and in a minute it should show your screen right here. So inside our recipes, we still need to create another component, which is all these cards right here. And to do that, we're going to head back into our component, and we're going to call this recipes card.js. Save that. We're going to create a boilerplate code as well. So we're done with our category. Let's close it. Let's minimize this. Our home screen as well. Do we still need anything there? Yes, we do. Here, let's leave it as well. So inside our recipes, we're going to create some things first. Remember that we use some props here, categories and meals. Let's bring that in first. We're going to see meals and also categories. We're going to assign the categories inside of this component in a minute. And this is called the structuring, by the way. So after doing that, let's head back to our recipes card component. So let's begin installing this recipes card. And before we do that, let's just bring that inside of this code here. So we're going to say recipes card. We're going to bring that in right here. Save that. And you can see the recipes card in a minute. So inside of these recipes, we're going to clear this text first and head back to our recipes card component. And inside of this, we're going to say we have a view, good. But inside of this view, we also need to be able to press each of these cards one by one. So the component for that is called pressable. And this pressable, we're going to import it from React Native. And also, we're going to say it has some properties. And one of the properties is style. And inside of the style, we're going to say the width is 100, but not only 100, we're going to say it is 100%. Also, we're going to have a padding right to be, if it is even, or if even is true, we're going to set this to be 8 and also this to be 0. Now, where is this even? We're going to create that here and say that is even be equal to the index. Okay, this index, we're going to destructure it right here. And say after this index, set it to be a percentage of 2 and also set this to be 0. So after this, we still need some additional properties here. We still need navigation and also we still need the items, individual items that we're going to be pulling from the data. We'll need a comma here. Save that. So after this, inside of the pressable, we want to have some sort of styling here. So we're going to say class name is equal to, I'm going to say it is a flex and also justify of center, margin bottom of 4 and also space y of 1. Inside of this pressable, we're going to have this main image here. So we're going to go ahead and say use an image, but import the image first from React Native. And this image will take in some properties. And the first property is called source. And in this source, we're going to say, not only is it going to be a URI of this, we're going to set the items to be string of meal and also thumb. Also, we're going to say it as a style. And the style is to be width. The width is going to be 100%. Okay, let's just copy this, put this inside of this. Also, we're going to say the height. We're going to say it is an index, and the index is going to be a percentage of 3. Set that to 0, and also if that is true, anyway, set the height to be of 25. No, we don't want all this. We only want this. Save that, and head back to our home screen. Go up. We're going to bring this code right here. Recipe card. Save that. So moving on, we're going to say if this is true, set the height to be of 25, and also if not, set the height to be of 35. Moving on, it says this right here, which is the string meal thumb, doesn't exist. Anyway, we're going to fix that in a minute. But let's finish installing our recipes card. It also has a border radius to be of not 10 but 35. Now, the next item we're going to use is a linear gradient from Expo. So copy this. We want to be able to have this nice gradient on top of the image and under the text so that it looks good. So we head back to our terminal, open this terminal, paste this code, select it, and let that install. While that is installing, head back to our code. So this has been installed. We're just going to close our terminal for a minute. And before we leave the image, we're going to say it has a class name of not rounded XL, but BG of black, and also set that over 5, and also set that to relative. So we're going to say after this image, let's have a linear gradient, and this is going to be coming from the package that we just installed now. So to use this, we're going to head over to our import statement here. We're going to say import linear gradient, and it's going to be coming from Expo linear gradient. Save that, head back to our code, and continue styling it. Now, this linear gradient takes in some properties, and the first one there is going to be colors, to set the colors of this background black. So let's set it to 0.9. Also, after that, we're going to make sure that we have a style there, and the style is going to be position of absolute. Also, bottom is going to be 0. Width is going to be 100%. Height is going to be not 100%, but we're going to use HP, and the HP is going to be 20. We can as well use an HP here to make it sync properly. So we're going to call this 100. After that, we're going to say the border bottom left radius is 35, and border bottom right radius is also 35. So the next properties this linear gradient takes is a start property, and this is x of 0.5 and also y of 0. And the next thing it's going to take is an end, which is also x of 0.5 and y of 1. So the next thing we have to do is add a text under this. On the side of this text, we're going to check something first. So the first thing we're going to check is if items dot string of mil length is greater than 20, then we're going to say item dot string of mil to slice the text from 0 to 20. And also, let's just remove this before we break our code. And also, we're going to say add a dot 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 at the end. So what is he saying is if the text is greater than 20, which is the title of this that we see right on our screen, just cut it from 0 to 20 and add dot 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 at the back. And also remember that we're working with a ternary operator here. We have to finish it by saying item dot string of mil right here. Let's just remove this and head back up and see if you still have anything to do. Well, this text we need to style it up, and we're going to say style is going to be font size. It is going to be HP of 2.2. Also, we're going to have some set of class names here, and the first one we're going to do is font of semi-bold. Also, margin left of 2, text of white, absolute, and also bottom of 7, and also left of 2, max width of a custom 80%. Save that, and yes, the next thing we have to do is make sure that we assign all these properties that we use in our code. So to do that, we still need to assign this navigation, and the best way to assign this navigation is to head over to our pressable, and under the class name we're going to say onPress, and the onPress is going to have an async right here, and also we're going to say navigation that navigates to recipe detail, and we're going to spread all the items received. So it seems that we broke our code, and all we need to do is add just one of these right here, and our code works perfectly here. Now let's assign this that is saying undefined. Head back to our recipes. So while in our recipes, let's bring in one or two things first. And the first thing we're going to bring in is navigation import use navigation from React Native navigation. Also, we're going to say the constant is going to be navigation, is use navigation. So also we're going to say this view needs some styling, and the first styling that we need is a class name. And we're going to say it has a margin X of this and space Y is 4. After this, we're going to have a text. So inside of this text, we're going to say it has a style, and the style it will have a font size of HP of not 2.5 but 2. Save that, and also outside of this, we're going to have a class name, and the class name is going to say it has a font of semi-bold, and also it should have a text of neutral of 800 or maybe 600 rather. So inside of this text, we're going to say assign mils dot length to it, and also call this recipes. So this is this nice text here. So after this, we're going to have a view, and this view, before we display all these meals right here, we want to make sure that this category, if it is equal to 0, we're going to show a loading icon here. Also, if this meals in itself is equal to 0, we're going to show a loading icon as well. So to get started with that, we're going to say in this view right here, we're going to say the categories, which is right here. The categories dot length is equal to 0, or if the meals dot length is equal to 0, then show something else. And what you're going to show is a loading icon. We're going to set that up in a bit. We're going to set the size to be of large. Also, we're going to set the class name to be margin top of 20. Now, if this is true, then we're going to show this loading. Else, let's show our real data here. And inside of this, we're going to be using a Monterey list library. We're going to install the dependency in a bit, Monterey list, and it takes a lot of properties which we are here to set. It's going to say it doesn't exist and loading doesn't exist as well, no problem. And what this Monterey list does is it gives your design this kind of stunning view. And to do that, we're going to head to our browser and we're going to install this in a minute. Copy this and go up, paste your code, install it, and we'll be able to use this Monterey in a minute. After this has been installed, bring down our terminal. Now to be able to use this, we're going to import that right here. We're going to say import Monterey list from at React Native so Monterey list. Save that. Head back to our code. And inside of this, we're going to see the first property is this text is data. We're going to assign that to the meals that we have here. Moving on, we're going to say it has a key extractor, and this key extractor is going to take in an item, and this item is going to have an arrow here, and after the arrow we're going to say item.id of meal. That's because whatever meal you see here has an ID, and this key extractor uses the ID. So let's first create our loading and head back to our component and say this is a loading.js, and inside of this we're just going to have a component like this, and inside of this loading we're just going to say it takes in a props first. That's the most important thing. It takes in a props, then inside of this we're going to say it has a style of class name, add s here, and also we're going to say it has a flex of 1, justify center, also items to be center. Save that. Now for this to work, let's go back to our recipes and also import this loading. Import it and you see the loading in a bit. If it doesn't, then we still have to work on our data. So head back to loading, and this loading, we're not just going to show loading, we're going to be showing an animation, which is an activity loading indicator. So we're going to bring this in like this. We're going to say it has all these wonderful props. Save that, and that is all for our loading. So close that, head back to our recipes, and inside of this Monterey, we're going to continue with the properties that it takes. And the next property it takes is the number of columns. The number of columns in our own case is going to be 2. As you can see, 2 columns right here. After that, we're going to say shows vertical scroll to be false. We don't want any indicator to be shown here. Thereafter, we're going to say render item. And the render item takes in a lot of things, and the most important one is to say it has an item and also an index. Then after that, we're going to say it has an arrow function here. Also, we're going to say what are you going to display here. So this is the recipes card that we have here. So we're going to put that inside of here, and you can see no data exists yet for the meals. That's why it is showing this loading icon. And to fix that, use recipe card, we're going to say the item is going to be item, and also the index is going to be of I, and also navigation is going to be of navigation. Save that. So let's just add the last property here, which is on end reach threshold, and set that to 0.1. So after adding this, if this doesn't show, then it means that our data is not being searched properly. So we're going to head back to our home screen. We're going to go up, and when we are pulling our recipes, it seems we forgot to set the response to set meals, which we have here. So the next thing to do is just under this, we're going to say if the response and response data is this, set the meals to response data.meals and save that. When you save that, you should see the meals in a bit. After setting this, if this error still persists, we need to make sure that we're setting something right. So we head back to our recipes card, and we're going to make sure that this is called items, and also this is called item dot string meal thumb. However, we still have something, and that is this. So we're going to change this to item. And after changing this, we head back down to wherever we use items. We're going to say this is not items but item, and also item. So if we save that, the error should disappear in a bit, and it says property item still doesn't exist. Okay, once you change this to item, open the terminal and stop your server. Stop your server and start it once again. npx expo start. Click on that, and you should reload your app, and the error should disappear. You can see our data displayed here, and this seems that it has a bit of design issue. So we're just going to head back to our code and check where we have the error. So maybe we have the error here in the width. All we're going to do is change this to 100%, save that, and that should fix our problem. Excellent. So we have all our design ready, and we have the Mansory applied as well. So now when you select a category, the meal and recipe should be displayed. So we're going to do that in 3, 2, 1. Once you select chicken, it is going to check all the recipes under chicken, and it is going to display it right here. Now if you click on lamb, or let's say miscellaneous, it is going to show you the amount of miscellaneous that it found, which is 11, and it's going to display the image right away. So let's head back to beef and see our data here. After we are done with this home screen, we want to be able to select each of these meals and see their full information as we have here. So this is what we'll be creating, and we have the image here, which is image of each of the meals, and we have the title, which is this, and we have the location and ingredients of each specific meals, and also we want to be able to have a scroll view inside of this so we can see other instructions on how to prepare this particular meal, and also the back navigation and the favorite icon navigation. And to create this, we're going to head into our source, and also we're going to head back into our screens and recipe details screen. So in our recipe details screen, in this view, we're going to change it to scroll view right there. And also we're going to have some set of properties here in the scroll view. And one of the properties is having a class name. And the class name itself is flex1. After this, we want to create another props, and the props is called shows vertical scroll indicator to be false. And also we want to have the content container style, and in this content container style we want to be able to have a padding bottom of, let's say, 50, or if 30 won't be too much. And after that, we want to be able to have this nice status bar to be light color. So if we select this, it will take us to the recipe screen and all. So just after this, we want to have a status bar, and we want the style to not be dark but white. Then the next thing we're going to do is have a recipe image. Next thing we're going to have under this, a view, and inside of the view, normally we're supposed to have an image right here, which works perfectly. So we're going to say import this from React Native, and also this view, we want to have a class name to be flex of row. Also justify center. In as much as we want to use this image right here, we can't use, because remember, we want to be able to not fetch the image every time we call the API, because we already called the API right here and we don't want to be calling it every time again. So inside of this, I want us to have something called caged image. And this caged image is going to cage all our images in this mail. And this takes in some properties like URI, and the URI is going to be item dot string mail dump. Oops, we have an error here. We don't want this to be this, we want it to just be item. Great. We're going to bring in the item in a bit. And after this, we're going to have another property called shared transition tag. And this is going to take item dot string mail. Good. Another property we want to have here is the styling, because we want this image right here to have a style, just like we have our width to be a WP of, no, we don't want this. We want this to be 100, which is the entire width of the screen. And also we want the height to just be, let's say, 45. When we save that, you get an error that this cached image doesn't exist. So the best thing to do is just head back to our components and create a folder called utils. Just outside the main component, under source, create a folder called utils. And inside of the utils, create an index.js and just paste this code right here. What this code is just doing is saving or caching all these images in our local storage. As you can see, we are using this package called async storage from React Native async storage. So this, you can install it in your installation packages like we did in the previous videos. Also, we're going to be using use effect and use state to track which images is available and also to be able to do other things. So animated as well, this is good for animation and just basic piece of code. You don't need to understand everything here, but know that the job of this code is to catch the images. So when we close that, we're going to bring in this catch image. All we have to do is just import. We're going to see cached image from, we're going to bring this in from utils, and also we're going to say index. Save that, and when you select this, you should see your image in a bit. So select that. It says item doesn't exist. Okay, so we're going to head back to our code and create some set of states. And the first one we're going to create is say let item be equal to props dot route dot params. Also, we want to create a navigation here. We're going to be using use navigation. Next thing we're going to do is create a use state called muse. We don't want that to be capital letter but small letter. And also set the muse to be use state. And this, we don't want it to be an object, but we want it to be null. Good. After that, let's make sure that we import our use state from React. After this, we're going to create constant of loading, which is another state, and we're going to set the loading to true. That we have a stage which tracks this wonderful icon here. And we're going to set its favorite to false. Next thing you have to do is create a use effect hook. A use effect hook. And also, we're going to make sure that we get mail data, which is, of course, a function we're going to create under this use effect. And we're going to say item dot id of mail. So under this, we're going to create get mail data. Of course, this is a constant variable. And also, we're going to say this is async. And it has an ID. And also, we're going to say this looks like this. So inside of this, we're going to try many things and pull from our API. We're going to say try. And in this try, it's always has a catch. And the catch also is going to catch for the errors. So while the catch is ready, let's set up the try. So inside this try, we're going to create a variable called constant of response, which is where we're going to store all our data we are pulling. We're going to say await, use axios, which is used for fetching data. And also we're going to put the string where we're going to fetch data from. And this is how that looks. But in our own case, we're not going to have plus ID. We're only going to have is equal to, and we're going to use the dollar sign, and also we're going to use ID. But this dollar sign and this ID works only in a template literals, which is something like, we're just going to put this in a backtick. That is how this can work. And once we get the data inside of this variable, let's say if the response, that is if the data is true, and also if the response, the data is also true, that is we got it correctly from the API, let's just set the mail and also set it to be response.data.mails at array 0. After this, we're going to say also set the loading to false. And we are setting this loading to false because whenever this data populates, we want to hide that loading and we don't want to see it on the screen anymore. And the next thing we have to do is also create a variable called ingredient indexes, which is this as well. So without further ado, let's create that. We're going to say create ingredients indexes, and we're going to say this looks just like this, and inside of this we're going to pass in the parameter, and the parameter is going to be called meal. And inside of this we're going to say if this specific meal is not true, then return an empty array. So after this we're going to say let index6 be equal to also an empty array. And after that, we're going to use a for loop to loop through the mails and the indexes. And the best way to do that is say, use a for loop. And this for loop is going to say, let's just close this so that we don't get any error for now. And inside of this, we're going to pass in some set of things. We say let I be equal to 1. And also we're going to say I is less or equal to 20. And also increment I by 1. So after that, we're going to say inside of this for loop, if the meal has an array called s3r ingredients plus I, then push the indexes into it. Now it says got an invalid value for component props. No problem at all. We're going to fix that in a bit. So inside of here, we're going to pass a props because you're using the props here. So if we save that, there shouldn't be any error again. And if the error persists, all you have to do is just reload your app, reload it. After reloading, our app works perfectly. And once we close this, we're going to check our code. Let's see if we don't have any issues for now. So if you select this, it says use effect doesn't exist. So we're going to find our use effect, select that, import it, and you can see it right here. So if you click on this, it says WP doesn't exist. My bad. So let's head back to our home screen. We're going to bring in our WP here. This is HP, but we can always tweak it to match our WP. So bring this here. Also, we're going to say width percentage to DP as WP. So when this is ready, let's see. Do we still have any other thing? No. So if you select this, you're going to see the image of the meal we just clicked. Excellent. So if you go back again, click this beef and oyster, or let's say scroll up. Let's see this meal itself. So if you click it, you're going to see the meal. So every image on this screen right now has been cached already using this cached component. So if you select this, you see the image, and this is similar to what you're creating. So the next thing we are going to create is this back button and favorite icon. And we're going to move along by saying under this, let's have a back button and also favorite icon. So inside of this back button, we are going to have a view, and inside of this view, we're going to have a touchable opacity. We're just going to make sure that we import that from React Native, save that. Now, whenever we are working on this recipe detail screen, we don't want, whenever we save, we're taking back to the home screen. We just want to stay on the recipe detail screen. So to do that, we're going to head back to our app navigation index, which can be found inside our source and navigation. We're going to set this initial route name to not be welcome, but recipe details, which is this. So whenever we load the app will always stay in where we are currently working on. So right here, we're going to select, let's just select something that looks cool. So we'll select this. So inside of this view, we're going to have a class name, and this class name is going to be width or full, absolute. Also want a flex row, as well as justify between items of cent, and also padding top of 10. Inside of this touchable opacity, we want to have some set of props as well. And the first one we see is class name, padding of 2, rounded of also full. Also, we want to have a background color of white. And finally, on that, we want to have a margin left of 5. And inside of the touchable opacity, we still have one more prop that we want to use. And we're going to say unpress. Whenever we unpress this, we want to go back to the previous screen. The next thing inside of this touchable opacity is use an icon. We're going to see this icon is called chevron left icon. And the size is going to be HP of 3.5. And the color, we want it to be not this specific color, but using our favorite orange color. So after this, we want to also have like a stroke around this icon. We're going to say the stroke width is going to be 4.5. Save that, and you can see it looks really bold already. Our back is ready, and the next thing we are going to create is another touchable opacity. And inside of this touchable opacity, we want to also have an icon, and this icon is called art icon. And this art icon takes in some properties as well. And we want the size to be 3.5, stroke width to be 4.5. Also, we want the color to be based on if we select it or not. So this color is not going to be just like this. We're going to say if its favorite is true, then use this specific color. Else, just use gray instead. So this will depend on this state that we created here, and this state here, we're going to change it to true or false in the touchable opacity. So we're going to say onPress is going to set this set is favorite to opposite. So if you select it, it's going to change to orange. If you unselect it, it's going to change to gray. Let's give that a nice background. And here we're going to say class name is going to be padding of 2, rounded of full, background of white. And although we don't want this outline for the art icon, we want something different. So in the art icon, we don't want it to be an outline. Let's just duplicate this, and you're going to see what I'm saying in a minute. So we remove this art icon here, we remove this here as well, but this outline is not going to be outline. We're going to be using the solid. So if you save that, you should see the changes in the bit. If that doesn't work, let's just save it and bring it back in. So we're going to head back here and say, just use the art icon here, save it, and you can see that has been changed. So if you select this, it's going to change to orange. Next thing we're going to do is create some set of information about the specific mail that we're creating. So under this, we're going to say this is called mail description. We're going to say if it's loading is true, that is, if the data is still loading, show a specific thing. And what we're going to show is a loading component. In this loading, it takes some props, and the first one is to set this stat to be, we just want to be a string. Also want to have a class name, and the class name is going to be margin top of 16. Now after this, we're going to say else show something else. So if loading is true, show this loading icon, else show our component and the remaining information. So we're going to say this as a view, and in this view we're going to say it has a class name of padding of 4 is flex, justify between space y of 4, also background white, and as well as margin top of a custom minus 46. So if you save that, you can see that change. Now if you don't, we're going to continue with our styling. Let's just close this sidebar. Inside of this view, we're going to say it has a style, and this style, okay, we want the style to be inside of the view. Sorry about that, it is a property of the view. We're going to say This has border top left radius to be not 35 but 50. Also, we want a border top right radius to be 50 and also padding top to be HP of 5 or let's say 3 to see how that looks. We come back. If that doesn't work, all you have to do is just reload your app. But after we read our app, it's going to take us to our recipe detail screen, and currently we don't want that. So we're just going to go up and we're just going to search for it by saying string of meal thumb, which is this place. Now that's because normally before you get to this screen, you need to select a meal first. So before you get to this screen, you need to select a meal first. And this str meal thumb is passed along to this screen whenever you select a meal. So the best way to do that is head back to our navigation and say this is called welcome or home rather. Save it. To save our app and take us to our home screen in a minute. So if you select this, you're going to see the only thing that is missing is loading doesn't exist. So we head back to our state. We're going to say, okay, this is supposed to be is loading, and we're going to set is loading to this. So if you click or check back in our code, if is loading is true, then okay. So we click on this, and you can see the activity indicator that we just put here, which is the loading. The next thing you have to do inside of this view is populate the data. So the first thing we're going to say is the meal name. We're going to say it sits inside a view, and inside of this view you're going to have a text, but the view must have some styling as well. So we're going to say this has a styling of space y of 2. Also we want to have a padding x of padding x of 4. Save that and also move to the text. Inside of this text, we want to say this have a meal dot string meal, and inside of this we're going to pass an optional chaining method here. So the next thing we're going to do is style this up. We're going to say class name, and the class name is going to be font bold flex 1 text neutral of 700. Save that and let's continue with our styling. We also want to have a text here, and in this text we're going to say it has the meal with optional chaining of string area, which is the area or the location where we are pulling the data from. We're going to go back in a bit and select these, and we should get our data. And if we don't, let's just head back to where we are putting our data and see if there is no issues here. Now you're saying set is loading to false. This has to be is loading. So we go back, try again. So it seems we're not getting the data that we want. Let's just console.log it and see if we're actually getting all our data. So we're going to say this is new. Save that and see if we're getting everything that we need regards to that. We're going to say this one is new. Save that and open our terminal to see all our data is okay. Now the error is coming from Axios doesn't exist. That is, the library we're using to pull our data doesn't exist. Bad of me. So we're going to import that from here. So if we go back, click on this again, we should see our data right here, beef and oyster pie. So the error was just importing Axios, which is obviously used for pulling our data. So we continue with our styling by saying, let's just remove this. So after getting rid of that, we're going to say this text, which is a string of meal, also has a style. And inside of this style, we're going to say the font size is HP of not 3.5, but 3. You can see it looks good already. After that, we're going to say this also has a styling. And this styling is going to be quite similar to that, but not as big as that. We're going to reduce that to 2. Save that. But before we move on, let's just have a styling for this British text here. We can say text neutral 500. Our font is going to be medium. After this, we're going to have an ingredient section. And this ingredient section is going to be called ingredients. So this ingredient is going to have a view. Inside of this view, we're going to have a text. And inside of this text, we're going to have something called ingredients. Save that, and you see that right away. Class name, and the class name is going to be space y of 4, also padding of 4. Also, the text here, we want it to have a style, and the style here is going to be font size of 2.5. Also, the class name, which cannot sit there, by the way, we're going to have that inside of this. We're going to see class name is equal to font bold, also flex of 1, text neutral of 700. So if we select this, you can see it right here. After that, we're going to say we want another text here, but this text here is going to be a view. So we want to create this next, and we're going to say this view has a class name, and the class name is going to be space y of 2, margin left of 3. So we're going to say this ingredient meals function that we created, we're going to use it right here. We're going to say ingredient indexes, which has a prop of meal. How about you map through that, and also use I as the parameter and set this arrow here, and also use a curly braces here. Moving on, we're going to say you have to return something, and in the return statement we're going to return a view, and this view has a class name, and this class name is going to be flex of row, also space x of 4, as well as items center. After that, we're going to say it must also have a key which is equal to the I that we have here, not 1 but I. After that, we're going to have another view inside of this, and this view is going to be having a close tag like this, and this will have something called text inside of this, and also this is going to be meal, and in the meal we're going to have an array, and after the array we're going to have string ingredients, and we're going to say that is +1. So if you state that, not 1 but I, which is the I we are using here, which is the index. Moving on, we're going to say this as a class name, and the class name is going to be class name of having a background, and the background is going to be custom. We're going to have F6 4E. Also, we're going to have 32. Let's continue with our code. We want there to be some kind of other information here, and after the reload, we're going to make sure that the ingredient indexes function is properly set, and we're just going to scroll up, and inside of this we are not doing something, and what we are not doing is we are not returning anything here, and every function must return something. So if we save that, head back to our code, click on this, and you can see it right here. So after that, we're going to say this also have a rounded or full. Save that. Still have to create another view inside of this, and this view is just going to be like this. So we're going to copy this, put this inside of here, and save it, and say this as a class name of flex row, and after the flex row we're going to say space x of 2. After that, we're going to say this also have a style, and the style is going to be a height, and the height is going to be HP of 1.5, and also width is going to be also HP of 1.5. Save that, and you should see that in a bit, as you can see right here. Now there's an issue with that because we are already covering all the ingredients, and we need to solve that ASAP. After this text, another text, and this text we have some set of properties, but the first and the most important thing is to say meal as an array of str measure, and after this measure you're going to say plus I. Save that. So we're just going to continue styling this by say this as a style, and this style is going to be having a font size of HP of 1.7. Save that. And after that, we're also going to see it as a class name, and the class name is going to be font medium, also text of neutral. We're going to say this is 800. Also, this styling here, we're going to have a class name, and the class name is going to be font of extra bold. And after that, we're going to say text neutral of 700. Save that. And the next thing we have to do is say it also have a style, and the style is going to have a font size of 1.7, and we should be good to go. So if we go back to our app here and reload, so after reloading and we select each meal, it's going to look somewhat like this. And the issue will be that we are wrapping this view entirely in our code, or should I say this exactly. We're going to remove this, and this is going to be the self-closing view, and it looks perfect after we fix that. So this view right here that has the background of this is a self-closing tag, and you can see this looks similar already. So next we are going to create some set of instructions like we have here. Okay, we can see it, but underneath this we're going to have some instructions about how to prepare this specific meal. So under this, just after the curly braces, the view, the second view, after the second view, we're going to have instruction. And under this instruction, we're going to say we have a view. And in this view, we're going to say we have a text. And in this text, we're going to say it is a set of instructions. So we have this instruction sitting right here. And this view is going to have a class name. And the class name is going to be a class name of space y4 and also padding of 4. Save that. And also this text is going to have a class name. And this class name is going to be a font bold, also flex of 1, also text neutral of 700. Also, we need to be able to put some fonts there. We want to say the font size is 2.4. Does that look okay? Okay, that looks big already. We're going to say after this, we're going to have a text, and this text is going to be coming from new.string instructions with an S. And also we're going to say this should be an optional chaining. We're going to add a now start to that. We're going to say class name is going to be text neutral, and it's going to be 700. The style is going to be font size of HP of 1.7. If we save that, you see that in a moment. That has changed. Okay guys, we've come to the end of this recipe details screen, and this is all the information we'll be displaying here. And after that, we've come to an end in designing our recipe details card. And let's just click on this. It's going to bring in the beef brisket pot roast and the set of instructions on how to go about that. Now you might see a gray background here. Let's just fix that by adding a background of white to the main component. We're going to see this as a background of white. Save that. This should change in a bit. Yes, that is covered already. So, and also I would like to also fix something which is related to this right here. Whenever we click, the background disappears as well, and we don't want that. We're going to make sure that the background is in its own view separately, and we're going to say this should be here. So we're going to say copy this or cut this and place that right here. So after doing that and we select this, you can see that it is only the art icon that changes color, not the entire background. Well, that is fixed. So we go back, and also we need to fix that as well. So inside of these, we are going to have a view, and it is going to wrap around this opacity. We're just going to cut this out and place that right here. So if you save that, and click on back. Check this mail. Click on back again. You will see that it's only the icon, which is this one, that changes color or that gets fade out and fade in. Excellent. These are just little minor things that I think can make our UI great. Now moving on, when you click on each meal, I want there to be some sort of animation on these ingredients or this beef as well. So we're going to head back to our code, and inside of the meal, we're going to say this should have some sort of nice animation, and that we have animated dot view, not Lottie, but dot view. We save that. We're going to have to bring in animated. We're going to say import animated from React Native Reanimated. So if we select that, come down right here, we're going to say in this view, we want to have some set of properties, and you can just paste this code. So it says entering is fade in dot delay. However, we need to bring in this fade in from Reanimated. So if we save that, that error should disappear in a bit. So if we click on this, you see this animation comes in immediately. The data is available. So we're going to continue by saying this ingredient as well should have an animated dot view, and also the fade in should not only be 200 but 300. So immediately this comes in, this one comes in after, and the last thing we're going to add is the instruction, and this is going to also have animated dot view. Save that, and we're going to add the props here as well. This is going to have 400. Save that, go back into our home screen. We're going to click on this. We're going to see the animation comes in one by one, and yes, that is all the animation that we want to add in our recipe detail screen. It is these little animations that give your application a kind of look that makes it more stunning. So if you select these, you're going to see the text comes in one after the other. So after that, we may as well add some sort of animation to this individual meals here. We're going to head back to our home screen. Inside our home screen, we're going to scroll down and go into our recipes. And inside of our recipes, we're going to say, okay, let's change this to something of animated dot view, not dot Lottie, but dot view. And we're going to bring in animated, import animated from React Native Animated, and also we're going to bring in something called fade in, and we're going to paste the properties right here. Actually, it is face in down, so we're going to bring this in and remove this. So if you save that, you're going to see the individual cards here animate in. Then if that doesn't work, then you need to probably put it right here, animated.view, and also you're going to add that in right here. So that is it. Now to make sure that this works, we are going to head back to our index navigation, which is app navigation, and we're going to change this from home to welcome. So we're just going to head back into our welcome screen, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up.